Welcome to the Friday at 4 podcast series with your host Charles Luttrell and co-host Steve Kent.
Steve, welcome back to the Friday at 4, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a great week. Weather's
Good.
been kind of weird, but it's been
Yeah.
good. Things are moving, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Well, it is
Good week.
May, so weather is still unpredictable. April's trying to hang on with the cooler weather. June's kind of coming in, and May's in the middle going, which way do I go today?
It says, "May I be good? May I be bad? May I be cold? May I be hot?"
Right. And it does what it wants, regardless of what we say anyway. So,
You got that
yeah.
right. Yeah. So
Mm.
today's topic, I really like this because I think this is something that is kind of like near and dear to me. I'm very passionate about this topic because as we had discussed and talked about, I don't think some of the listeners might know, but most of the listeners, if you listen for the first time, don't know it. I had a business back in 2008 to 2012, basically around this topic a little bit. The name of the company was Constant Change Consulting, and that was my mystery shopping company. And I had clients all over the U.S. It was fairly big. It was going well for a while till divorce set in, and I had to let it go. But that's okay. It's behind me.
Mm.
But I think what I love about this is that, the name Constant Change Consulting. And I picked that name because the only thing constant is change. And that's why I chose that name for my business because I wanted to help businesses manage that change. So our topic today, and Steve, great topic you picked today is change. So have at it. I love it.
Change. Yeah. Okay.
He says, yeah, okay.
Change, and we'll get into a whole bunch of things about change, but it happens for a couple of reasons. Generically, it happens for a couple of reasons. Either we're going to change something because we're just tired and we want something new. We could change something because things change around us and we have no choice. We could change because somebody whispers in our ear, no, don't do that. Go do something else, even though we may or may not understand it. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why we change. But to your point, change is constant, whether we know it or not, want to accept it or not. Some of us like the steady, my alarm clock is set for 6 a.m. I take 17 minutes in the shower. I shave first to 3 minutes. I do an 18-minute workout. Some people like exactly by the minute what to do. And again, that's okay. But then there are other people who pretty much, flip a coin and whatever happens, happens. And again, that's okay. There is no right or wrong. But when we change, sometimes we look to see what it is. And when that happens, okay, I just got something on my screen and it's not going off.
Uh-oh. Well, while you're doing it, I'm going to just touch on that real quick. For those people who
Okay,
are
I got it.
setting that routine, 17 minutes in the shower, shave first, and they're set that change. Those people might not realize, or those are the type of people who don't don't like change, don't embrace change, hate
Mm,
change. Um, whether they know it or not, whether we know it or not, change happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. You
correct.
know,
Correct.
whether we accept it or not, right? And
Hmm.
that's one of the things I like for us to talk about because you have to accept the fact that everything changes. You cannot control that. What you control is how you deal with that change, right? How you manage that change. And that's what I used to teach with my mystery shopping company, with the reporting. And it was received so well
Hmm.
because most of the time, within 90 days, that change was so great. I could take businesses from 60, 70% to damn near 95, 100%
Wow.
perfect on their scores and reports because,
Nice.
again, because of that change, right?
Got it. So I'll give you a couple of things as we go through this about change and it impacted me. So one of the things that happened to me way back when was I graduated high school and I didn't know what I wanted to do for college, but I knew I had to go to college. And again, that's a whole different discussion. It doesn't mean you have to. I did. So one of my teachers as a senior in high school was into accounting. Now, I didn't even know what accounting was, couldn't spell accounting. I had no clue, but I liked him as a person. So I said, if he's okay, and he had accounting stuff on the outside, and he was very successful, very happy, but taught during the day. So I said, okay, I'm going to go for accounting. And I went to a school in New York City for the first year. And to say that I was miserable is putting it nicely. Now, it wasn't necessarily the accounting. It was the commute to the school. It was the school itself. There was no campus. There was no social life. So it wasn't necessarily the school or the degree, the accounting degree. So a little bit into my second year, I dropped out of college.
Oh,
And so I changed. I dropped out, good or bad. And then I went to work. This is in 1975. I went to work in a men's clothing store for minimum wage, and I thought I was the big man on campus because I had a job. And I found out very quickly that I should have stayed in school. So I applied back to from a 4 year school. Now I applied to a 2 year school. I figured I'd go to school part time. Well, they accepted me full time. So I swapped out and I went to school full time, worked part time, another change. I got my 2 year degree. And then I said, okay, I need to go get a 4 year degree, another change because I was going to stop. But nope, got to go for a 4 year. Changed, went to a 4 year, got my degree. But that whole change in my case took me 6 years to get a 4 year degree.
yeah.
And it was a long time, a lot of change. And I didn't understand it at the time. But it turned out that getting that accounting degree, and I never practiced, by the way, but getting out gave me a great business background. But again, I had to change and change and change and did not necessarily understand it. That's the key. I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah. I
So,
went through a drastic change from, I would say, mid March, April of, well, I think it was later than that. It was later in the year of 1999 into, so in 1999, I went to school for computers. I did a continuing adult education class. That was a night course, and it was several classes. It was a while. It was a good course.
mm,
But in less than 6 months, I went to a rapid change because I was working for my cousin in the medical field. Then I went to this after this program for learning this computers. And then in August of 2000 is when I started my career in the corporate world. So that was a huge, drastic change. But all of that change happened within months,
wow.
going from, working into medical field to getting this certificate and learning computers and
Hmm.
upgrading and repairing and all this good stuff, and working into corporate field
Mm,
within months. And that was drastic, but I embrace it and I love that change because that's the change that I wanted, you
mm,
know. And that's the other part of this, right? Sometimes we go through change that it's not wanted, but we have to go through it. And as we go through that change, we can look back at it, right, and say, well, I'm
mhm.
glad I went to that because now look where I'm at today, right?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
The only thing to do when something happens that is not of your choosing and it happened to me, instead of screaming and yelling and going after somebody and doing something you're gonna regret later, the best thing to do is to sit back, take a breath, and go out and do whatever you can to be successful to prove to the person who did you wrong that you're better. That's the way you get back at somebody, is to prove them wrong.
Yeah. Be the better person.
Yeah, when I went to work in 1980, for the most part, in my 32-year career in IT, for the most part, I changed jobs every 2 to 3 years. I needed a change. Part of it was the change that the company I was with, I didn't want to be with for various reasons anymore. Part of it could be the manager I didn't want to be with for any number of reasons. The team I was with could be any number of reasons. I changed for those reasons. I changed for a higher position. I changed for a higher salary. I changed. And somewhere in the '06, '07, '08 range, I had no choice but to change because they eliminated my position. So I had
That's
no
a tough one.
choice to change.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
But I came back very quickly with another job. This was right before the '08 crash, which is a great time to change jobs, right?
Great
Um,
timing for a job change, right?
yeah, but I had no choice, but I changed.
Yeah.
I changed. I was living in New York. I changed. I moved to New Jersey for the job. I changed again. I moved to Illinois for the job. I changed again. I moved back to New York because of a personal issue. I lost my spouse. But I changed. Sometimes you initiate the change, and sometimes it's initiated for you. Okay. You
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
but can you be flexible enough?
Yeah.
Schooling, jobs, you have a partner, whether boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, we're going to call it partner. Um, you could be with a partner and then you decide to change. The other person decides to change. You join together, you decide to change, but you're changing for something you perceive as to be better.
Yeah. What's interesting is you've been with me since the beginning, almost the very beginning of this new business that I'm working on.
Hmm.
Right prior to doing the podcast, I started trying a couple different things with the mystery shopping, and then I was going to partner up with a friend that just didn't work out. I didn't like that direction we
Mm,
were headed with what we were doing.
got it.
But you've been with me for most of this, and you have probably seen the most change ever in me over the past 2 years. I have pivoted and changed this business model probably 25 times. And while it's not big changes, the subtle changes are making a
Mhm.
difference because
Sure.
although I have the same vision, the same idea of what I'm working on, those little subtle changes are taking that my river is flowing, it's going different directions, it's slowing down. I'm hitting some rocks in the river. I'm hitting some slow, shallow, just rolling along like I'm on an inner tube parts, and then I'll get ready to hit the Great Rapids. And while I like to compare those rapids to change, I feel that, right? It's like sometimes that change hits you really fast and hard. And sometimes the change is so slow and gradual that you're able to embrace it and look at it and watch it unfold. But then there's other times that change happens so fast. What just happened? I'm looking back going, whoa, what is that? Yeah.
There's a lot. There is no magic formula that says what I'm doing today, I'm going to keep doing for 6 years.
Yeah. So true.
Or what I'm doing today has to change tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And there's no secret formula. You want to change, and I'm talking general, excuse me. You want to change because you want to give added value to your friends, your family, your clients, whoever. So you want to make changes. And people, in many cases, are slow to accept change. So there's always that fine line of, do I make a change? How fast do I make the change? And what's the extent of the change? So the way you did it, in my opinion, is you have something, You put it out there, and within sometimes a week, sometimes a month, you said, you know what? Let's make a tweak. But you had that foresight to say a change is needed and to make that change small enough that it does make a difference, but it's not overwhelming to the client.
Yeah.
So you have built in the last almost 2 years, give or take, that we've known each other. I've seen you work differently, think differently, produce frankly, a much better output to the client. And that only comes from understanding what you do and what your client needs, even though they may not know it at the time.
Yeah.
And that's a
Key point,
fine
right?
line to walk.
Yeah. Key point, right? Because sometimes even our clients don't know what they want. Even though
Correct.
change sometimes sucks for people, they don't want to embrace that
It
change. They
does.
don't want to believe they need to change.
Yeah.
But sometimes once we make that decision for them, they embrace it at that point and say,
Yeah.
well, Chuck was right or Steve was right. I had to go that direction to make what I'm
Mhm.
doing better.
Yeah. Yeah. I read somewhere, actually multiple times, and again, this is one author's or multiple authors' opinions,
Mhm.
but the two things that people fear more than death are public speaking and change. Seriously.
I agree.
I've seen that multiple times. Now, again,
Yeah.
I didn't write that. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist. I don't do that stuff. But
Yeah.
I've seen this multiple times that it's public speaking and change. They don't want to do it. They will avoid it at all cost.
A
But
quick story about that is my second corporate job when I tried to get back in the corporate world and failed miserably and said, I'm not doing
mm,
this again. We had to go and interview another department in our
mm,
company. And then we had to speak upon that other department to the
mm,
entire company.
mm.
So there were hundreds of people standing there watching one person, you, talking about this part of this department that you're interviewed and want to tell the company about what you learned about that department.
Gee,
While it was a great exercise because you get to learn about different parts of where you work that you wouldn't normally work in,
right.
I was terrified. I never spoke to that many people before, but when I was finished, I loved it.
Yeah.
So I embraced that little
Yep.
subtle change really quick and said, you know what, just do it. Have fun with it. I was scared to death. I'm sure my face was red. I was so nervous,
Yeah.
but I did
Yeah.
it.
When I was in my 6 years of college, in that college that I went to for the 2 year degree, one of the semesters I had to take what they called a public speaking class, which basically it's a speech class. And there were only like 10 people in the class, so it was small. And the first speech you had to get in front of the class was 30 seconds on anything you wanted to talk about. Anything. And it left such an impression. Now we're talking back now, mid 70s. So we're talking
Oh wow.
probably
I was gonna say the
40,
90s.
40 years
Oh,
ago. I appreciate
okay.
that. Yes, I am older, so it was the mid 70s. Okay.
Gotcha.
But I still remember it, that I got up in front of the class, it's 30 seconds, but it felt like 30 years.
30 years.
I was so nervous. I was sweating. I was stuttering. And it was 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But that first one, once I realized, like you said, hey, this isn't so bad,
Mhm.
that started me off. Now I can speak in front of hundreds of people and be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Same here. I don't care. There was a time when a client hired me as their mystery shopping company, and I went in and speak to the entire um, restaurant employees, and there was a number of people there. And I handed out reports. Everybody looked at it, and I told them everything that we're looking for, what we do. I told them what their boss was looking for, how this is all
mm,
presented, and it was received very well.
mm,
And I think by doing that, stepping up, talking about that, it really helped that entire company embrace what change was about to come. Because not only were they at first very hesitant to want to even be involved in it, but once they realized the process of how everything's going down
Mm.
and what was going to happen if you were the person that was mystery shopped, what that person was going to get rewarded with, they really perked up and they're like, well, I hope it's me. I hope it's me. And then when I walk in and hang the report up on the wall, everybody would flock to it and say, oh my God, who got shopped this month? We got to see the report. They just run to it. So it built excitement rather
Yeah,
than,
yeah.
oh my God, Big Brother was watching us. Who's going to get it this time? You know? So,
Depends
and
how it's
that's a good change.
presented. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
depends how it's presented. If it's presented as we're trying to get better, nothing's happening to anybody. I mean, short of basically telling a potential client, mystery shopper, but potential client, short of telling somebody off or kicking them out of or hitting somebody, be yourself. If things
Mhm.
don't work, use it as a way to get better. And as long as people are assured nothing's going to happen to them, which is trying to make the company better, most people will go along with it and be okay.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
So true. When my first time presenting to a company like that,
Mhm.
it really wasn't perceived that well because, they always had that bad stigma. When you heard about the word mystery shopping and secret shoppers, you immediately felt violated. Oh, Big Brother's watching. That's stupid stuff, They don't think we can do our jobs. Anyone just look over us secretly. You hear a lot of bad stuff. But once they saw the questions, what their owner was looking for,
Mhm.
how it was graded, where the numbers were, and then he started really embracing because not only did they realize that, wow, if I just greet the customers in 30 seconds and smile, I can get 100 points in that report and I can get a $25 gift card. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And they did it. They liked the reward. Yeah, it was received very well at that point.
I was in corporate for a long time. And one of the things that typically does not happen, and to me it's a mistake, is when people get to really high levels. And I'm not suggesting they should or should not be there. I'm saying when people get to really high levels and they've been out of the daily grind for a long time, they might make decisions that are no longer valid because they don't understand the workforce. They may not understand the customer because you're sitting up in a corner office. But when somebody at that level, like you did, this is what senior management is looking for. How can we do this? And once they understand, again, for the most part, what's trying to be done and what the end result is, most people will come along and do the right thing.
One of the cool things I did when I was going after a potential client, I would do a free shop for them. So I
Okay.
already had that data ahead of time.
Mm,
And then specifically the ones that had multiple locations, I give them a report and they're like, wow, so this was an 85, not too bad, but I wonder what my other locations are like.
hmm.
Gets them thinking.
Yep.
And then they go, well, hey, I know this location might be worse. Go here first, but I'll pay you for this one. And it's like, okay, gotcha. I go
Sure.
do it. And then they're shocked at what the results are.
Huh.
And they're like, I need to do this. Let's do this. Sign me up. We do this on a regular basis. And it
Yeah.
works. You know,
It
once
does work.
people see, yeah, once people see that data, see how
Hmm.
valuable these tools can be,
Right.
then that change becomes easier to manage and easier to adapt to, right? Because then people really want that, you
Yeah.
know?
All they want is an explanation. You're
Yeah.
making a change. I know it's going to impact me. What's going on? It's that
Yeah.
it's that unknown that really unhinges a lot of people. And I get it. Happened to me too. But once you understand what's going on and what's behind it, I think you get a better buy-in. Again, nothing's perfect. Not everybody's going to do everything. I get that too. But once they understand it, again, short of saying we're doing this because you're going to write yourself out of a job, then I could see rejecting it. Yeah. But if it's how to make things better, how to serve the customer better, because what a lot of people don't know, and I've done a lot of training on this, very rarely are the rank and file staff told more than their own little function in a company. So how do I, as a one cog in that whole wheel, how does what I do impact the next department, eventually out to the customer? How does it impact the revenue? How does it impact the expenses? I'm not looking for a detailed analysis because I don't know it. I don't care. I don't want it. I want to understand it. But high level, where do I fit in the company? And when people are told this is what you do, it department one feeds department two, feeds department three, which hits the customer. The end result is that external customer buys the product or service, pays your salary, and the rent and the utilities and the insurances and all the things that go with it. So if you don't
Absolutely.
know how you fit in, many people say, so I show up today, I show up today. I don't. I do a good job, I don't do a good job. Who cares? Nobody will know. But in reality, they do. So the
Yeah.
change of mindset of tell Chuck how he fits, tell Steve how he fits. It's important.
Yeah. And not to stray off the topic too much, but that kind of hit a little bit because these younger generations today actually think like that.
Hmm.
I don't mean nothing to a company anyway, so why do I care? I'll just show
Yeah.
up for a paycheck and do what I got to do and go home. They don't really get how important they really are to the role of that company,
Hmm.
whether it's a small company with 5 employees or a major corporation with 5,000 employees. You all matter. You all have,
Hmm.
that important part that you play in that company,
Yeah.
you know?
But the change of mindset by management has to be I need to tell them they're important. I need to tell them what they do matters. Now,
Yeah.
that has to be balanced between just because I tell Chuck that he's important doesn't, does not translate into an immediate salary increase or promotion. So
Right.
there's that balancing act too. But
Yeah.
understand, Chuck, you play this role, Steve, you play this role, and whoever else. And it's important that you're there. We'll do what
Yeah.
we can. But again, company has to make a profit and all those things that come with it. But the change in mindset starts at the top.
And then change happens at every level, every week, month, year that you work in a place because the
Let's,
job's not going to stay the same. Although you may
let's,
be hired to sit there and type in these 5 reports an hour, and that's your job. But 6 months from now, your job might be, well, now we have to pivot to take on this little bit of a role to help with these reports because that's part of the company, how things go. So
mhm,
many people that I hear, well, that's not my job description. I'm not doing it. That's part of embracing that change that we don't like, that's abrasive, and say, well, perfect example, a company I worked for years ago, technology. I worked in customer service. Something was about to crash, a big thing was going to happen. We had to pivot to enter all these pieces of equipment into this database if something was going to happen within minutes. So customers wouldn't lose what they had in this database. So we got the call. All right, let's start working on this. So we started doing this, and all of a sudden they said, "Oh, hold up, nope, we don't have to do it anymore. We're all good." I
hmm,
embrace the change and say, "I'll be part of it. I'll help." But at that point, it didn't matter. I think the fact that some of
hmm,
us just stepped up to the plate to say we're going to do it
hmm,
really solidified and made them see that this guy is a player, wants to be part of the team. He
mhm.
embraced that change. So when I helped this company, and that helped me get my roles as I moved through the company, and moved up the ranks,
It
you
is.
know. Yeah.
There should never be, again, my opinion, there should never be a time where people step on each other to get ahead. And we know that it happens all the time.
All the
But
time. Victim of it. Absolutely.
but where
Yeah.
there is a genuine problem,
Yeah.
somebody has to step in out of their comfort zone and say, "Hey, I'll help you."
Yeah.
Because if it's the problem is big enough and it explodes and it gets out of control, depending on what it is, it may not be able to be stopped in time. You lose customers, you lose reputation, you lose everything else. So be that change, be that person who steps out.
Yeah.
Again, just
Yeah.
solve the problem and then go back to your role. Don't get an ego because you helped.
Yeah.
But
And
see,
in closing, man, look, and in closing, if anybody knows about change, that's my topic.
Mhm,
I've handled and I've been through a lot of things that involve change. I'm very good with change management. It's something I do.
mhm,
Reach out to me. You need help? You want to
yeah.
knock some questions off of me and bounce things around? Reach out to me. No big deal.
So
So
call Chuck at 410-935-6132. Great lead in, by the way. Thank you. Even though you didn't know
love
what
it.
you just
Thank you
did. Okay.
for hitting that number first this time.
Repeat that. It's 410-935-6132. Call Chuck. He'll
Yeah.
help you. He's got the experience. He's independent, so he's not going to, give you opinions leaning one way. He's not going to, be the management opinion. He's going to give you the truly independent picture of what's going on.
A
So give him a call.
non-biased opinion, man.
Yep,
Exactly. Yeah.
yep,
And
yep.
Steve, 516-727-2294. You're the man. If you
And
know anybody knows about change, man, with finances, you are the guy. Because I can only imagine what people go through with changes in finances. We're going through it right now. I mean, I know there are a lot of people right now who are worried about these
yeah,
financial changes. And I know you can help people get through that. I know you can.
yeah, there are ways.
Yeah.
But again, you have to be willing to listen and make a change. That's the key. You have to be willing to make a change.
Oh, you said it best. I was about to touch on that. If you're not willing to embrace change, accept change, and know that sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, you
Hmm.
know, you're not going to get through it. And you have to realize that it's going to happen to you no matter what. You have to embrace it. You have to,
Yep.
because it's coming.
Yeah.
Sometimes you like it, sometimes you hate it, but sometimes once you're through it, on the other side, whether you smash through it, went over it, under it, around it, when you got to the other side of it, look back and go, man, it wasn't too bad. I made it.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Now, Steve, what a great episode, man.
Yeah. I think
I'm
this was
glad you
good.
brought this up because I think that this topic, again, another topic we could talk on for days and days and days because there's
Mm.
so many ways, so many things we could, to incorporate and talk about how to deal with change and what to do with it,
Yep.
and I think if people just take a step back and breathe, take a deep
Mhm.
breath, relax, and think about that change, what's
Mhm.
coming, what could be coming, you could manage it a little bit better.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Love it. Good stuff.
Yeah. So in closing, okay, what you got?
What do
Deep
I
breath.
got? So, two quick things. One is I agree with you. Be ready to change. It can happen on a dime, but if you don't change, nothing will change. And the last thing I have of what do I say every week?
It's Friday at 4 because
It's 4 o'clock somewhere.
it's 4 o'clock somewhere.
Can't get away with that. I have to do that. Okay.
We cannot. We've been doing that for so long, man. I think that's just that makes the show.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. But it's
Real
so true,
good.
right? Because think about it. It's 4 o'clock somewhere,
Hmm.
whatever time zone you're in. And that's enough right there to embrace different types of change because you're probably watching this podcast in a different time zone than when we recorded it.
Yep.
And you're watching at a different time than we're probably watching and somebody else is watching it. So
That's
yeah,
okay.
yep.
It's all right.
As long as
But
they watch it. Watch.
bingo.
Subscribe to the
Watch it.
YouTube channel.
You
And
got
if
it.
you want to come on and join us, go to my website, QACteam.com, and sign up under the calendar link, man, and come on and join us. Talk with us. We'd love to have guests.
Absolutely. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. Steve, thanks again for coming on with another
You
great
got it.
episode. Love it, man. Love this podcast. I love talking about things and
Hmm.
another good one.
Yeah,
Have a
was.
great rest. Yeah, man. Have a great rest of the day. Have a
You
great
too.
weekend. And we'll talk soon.
You got it. Thanks.
See
Be
ya.
good. Take care,
Have a great
everyone.
day. See everybody.
You too.
Take
Bye.
care, everybody.
You've been watching the Friday at 4 podcast series with your host Charles Luttrell and co-host Steve Kent. Thanks for watching.